Hi there. In this video we're going to be continuing our AI tutorial series, and what we're going to be doing now is basically doing damage to our zombie. So the first thing that we're going to need for this is some sort of weapon for our player. So I have this machete that has animations. It's this package over here. I'll leave a link in the description. It comes with 9 animations, including comes with attacks, draw, get hit, idle, run. We're just gonna use the idle and attack for these purposes. So yeah, the first thing that we want to do is create an animator controller. So we're gonna do create, right click, create animator controller, and we're gonna call it machete. Basically, this is going to hold all of our animations for machete. The next thing that we want to do is grab this. So if we go into our machete folder, which comes from if we import the package, and grab the arms prefab or model, and we drag it to our first person character child object of the FPS controller. Basically, this is a camera. We'll have the arms already instantiated in the scene. Now what we want to do is move it until we can see it in the camera view. So we're gonna probably lower it around there. See how that looks. Looks okay, I guess. Yep, I think that works. So if we play now, we're gonna see that the arms follow our player. Now the shadow looks pretty bad, so I'm gonna disable that. To disable the shadow, we just click the render object and make sure that lighting, it must be under here. We open the lighting tab and go to cast shadows, and we switch it off. The same for the machete blade. You're opening the lighting tab and make sure that cast shadows is off. And now if we play, we do not have any shadows. Okay, so now that we have our arms, we're going to have to give them animation. So to do this, we're going to click our animation. Well, actually, we're just going to rename this. This is basically our machete. So I'm going to rename it to machete. And we're going to see that we have an animator component already attached. So what we're going to do is drag our animator controller that we just created to our controller slot. And then what we want to do is open our animator window. If you don't have the animator window, you go to window, animator, and that's going to create this animator window which you can dock anywhere. I'm going to leave it down here. Now it's going to be empty with it's going to have these blocks: entry, any state, and exit. We're going to, for these purposes, we're going to ignore any state and exit. We're just going to use entry. So we're going to go to our animations prefab of the machete. We're going to open this up, clicking this arrow, and we're going to see all our animations. We're going to drag the one that we want. For example, if we preview this attack, we're going to choose one of these, and we're also going to preview the idle, see how that looks. We're going to drag our idle, and automatically our idle creates a little transition from entry to idle. So basically what this is going to do is that when we play, the idle animation is going to play automatically. And now see it's playing. Now it's under the camera, so we're going to want to adjust that. But as you can see, the animation, if we go to our scene view, you can see that the animation is actually playing. So yeah, we're going to adjust the height, make it higher again. I think that should do the trick. Or maybe that's too high. Still too high. A little less. Too high. Maybe I'm gonna just drag it slightly higher. You have to adjust it, see which works for you. I'm gonna still make it a little lower. Just basically adjust it until it can be well seen by the camera and the animation. I think that works for now. So we have our idle animation for the machete. The next thing that we want to do is add our attack animation. So we're just gonna grab one of these. You can choose whichever attack. Maybe later in this tutorial series we're gonna implement random attacks, but we'll see if that's really worth it. For now we're just gonna do one attack. So we're gonna make a transition. We right click on our idle and then make transition and we click on our attack. This is basically going to let us by code move from the idle animation to the attack animation. The next thing that we want to do is create a trigger so that when we click we go from idle to attack. To do this we go here and this plus icon here in parameters and we right click plus and we make a trigger. We're going to call this attack. And what this is going to do is let us transition. If we click on this little arrow that transitions from idle to attack, we're going to see that it has this little checkbox that says has exit time. We're going to disable this first because we're not going to automatically transition from idle to attack, and instead the condition to change from idle to attack will be this trigger that we just created, which is attack. So we'll click this plus icon and make sure that attack is selected. The next thing that we want to do is transition from attack back to idle. This is going to let us, first when we click, we're going to trigger the attack, the transition is going to go, we're going to play attack, and then automatically when attack is finished, the animation attack is finished, we want to transition back to idle. So when we click this transition from attack to idle back, make sure that has exit time is enabled, so leave it enabled, and make sure there are no conditions. So yeah, now what we want to do is go to our player example script and open that up, and we want to have a reference to our animator. So we're going to create a new variable of type animator, private animator. What this is going to let us do is access the machete animator, so we can change we can trigger the attack and transition the animation. So to get a reference for animator, we're actually going to just do animator equals get component in children animator. We're going to do get component in children because remember that our player example script is in the parent object, the FPS controller, while our animator is one of the children animator. So get component in children will get us the component reference. So now that we have our reference, we're going to change this audio clip from shoot sound to attack sound. We're also going to have to change it here because since we're using a machete, we're not shooting, we're just attacking. We also want to probably change the radius of sound that this does because the machete doesn't make too much sound. So we're going to reduce from 20 to 2 or 1, just 1, because this machete barely does any sound. We're going to comment the sound out actually. We're going to comment it out because I don't have a machete audio effect. Maybe I'll search it out later. Basically, you don't comment this out, but just get like a machete, like a swoosh sound effect, and you drag it here so that it plays when we attack, right? So here what we want to do is under this line just put animator dot set trigger attack. What this is going to do is just set our trigger to attack. This is going to play our animation when we click. So let's test that out. If we click, it plays the animation. Now it looks kind of horrible because the camera's clipping the arms. It's just going outside the view. So actually we're going to drag that a little lower maybe. I don't really like these animations, but I'm using them because they're accessible to everyone. So maybe dragging that a little lower will help. I mean, that seems to work. Maybe a little tad bit higher. So you can just like fool around and see what works for you. I think that's the best position. So yeah, that seems to work. Now that the animation works when we click, we want to actually do the damage to the zombie, right? So Next thing that we want to do is go to our example zombie script, and we want to add like a health, right? So we want to create a float that's obviously health. So yeah, let's create that. Just add it, I don't know, on top of all of this. Public float health. We're just gonna make it equal 100. Or actually, no, let's make that an int. We don't want floating point int health, right? And we're gonna remove the f. Right? So we have our health variable. Now we're gonna have to do a function where we're hit, right? Public void wander. Under this, we're gonna make another void public void on hit. Oh, that didn't work out. On hit. What this function, we're gonna create this function that basically is gonna be executed each time the player attacks the zombie. So we're gonna want to add a parameter to this, which is going to be int damage, which is the amount of damage the player does to us. So basically, the only thing we're gonna do here is health minus equals damage. For now, right? If health is smaller than or equal to 0, basically if we died, this means if we died, what do we want the zombie to do if we die? The first thing that we want to do is stop him. So just make sure that actually we're also going to do something here in update, which is if health is smaller than or equal to 0, meaning we died, we return. Basically what we just did here is make sure that none of this code executes if we're dead, right? We don't want the zombie to chase us or whatever if we're dead. So if health is smaller than or equal to 0, we return, which basically ends the function here and stops executing anything else after that. So all of this will be not executed when our health is smaller than or equal to 0. The next, now what we were doing down here is basically if our health is small, if we just died, what do we want to do? Well, I'm thinking that probably we want to, actually, I'm not going to put it here, I'm going to put it up here, or we just created the if. We're going to make the zombie stop. Agent.speed equals 0. I shouldn't have put this under return. I should have put it before the return, actually. There we go. No, it wasn't. It wouldn't be executed. Agent.speed equals 0. We're just going to stop the zombie there to signal to him that we killed him, right? So now that we have our health, if our health reaches 0, the zombie should stop in place. So let's just, before we implement the machete making damage to the zombie, the first thing that we want to do is just check if the zombie stops when we kill him. So we're going to click the zombie, go down to his script, and see if we lower health to 0, he stops. If we lower health to -17, he just stops in place. So he died, right? We're going to stop the animation as well. So that's something that we want to do. Animator.stop. I'm thinking, how can we? No, we're just going to disable the animator equals false. There we go. It's basically going to make the zombie stop in middle of the animation, but for purposes of just seeing if he dies, it will work. We'll add a ragdoll later. So if we click our zombie and check his health and we move it to 0, he stops, signaling he's dead. We're going to make him drop in a ragdoll later on. For now, that works. Now that the dying worked, now we have to open our controller script, our player script, and make sure we make damage to the zombie. So for this, we're going to want to add a function if spherecast physics.spherecast physics.spherecast. So which one of these we're going to use? We're going to want to make a transform reference here. Public transform. I'll explain all of this in a sec. Public transform spherecast spa. I'm going to delete this for a sec. So we're going to create this transform, which is going to let us assign our transform here. What basically this does is to make damage to the zombie, we're going to shoot a small ray or sphere cast in this direction, and if we hit the zombie, we're going to execute its on hit function and reduce its health, right? Now the problem is we need an origin for this ray, and we're going to use this transform, the sphere cast spawn, for the origin of this ray. So we're going to go open our machete and create it's actually in the camera. Or I'm thinking maybe the camera's position works. I think the camera's position works. So we're going to try and actually drag our camera here. I think our camera's position works. So basically the ray that we're going to instantiate is going to originate in this transform here, and it's going to go forward. So we're going to want to create our physics.spherecast function. Physics.spherecast. Basically this creates our spherecast array, and there are various. We're going to use this one. Vector3 origin, float radius, vector3 direction. So the origin is going to be our spherecast spawn, right? Our radius, let's try 0.5f. Our direction would be spherecast spawn transform direction, vector3 dot forward. That forward. So we're going to add our spherecast spawn, the radius, or transform direction. This is direction of the ray. Basically the ray is going to shoot in this direction, and we need to define a direction in world space. So since this camera, the forward position is in local space because it's a child of FPS controller, we're going to want to transform this local space into world space with this function. And the next thing we're going to use is the layer mask of the zombie. So we already created our zombie layer. So we need an out variable. We need to do an if here actually. I forgot the if. We're also going to need, forget this actually. We're going to need an out variable, which is raycast hit. So raycast hit. All right, and we're gonna put out hit here. And then zombie. And finally, zombie layer. These last two parameters, out hit basically lets us have information of the object this raycast or spherecast hit, meaning the zombie. That way we can have a reference to the game object and execute the function, this on hit function, and reduce its health, right? So we need the reference with this variable. So it's basically going to store it in this raycast hit variable. Then actually spherecast spawn that position here. Forgot that. And then zombie layer basically is going to make sure that we only hit the zombies layer and nothing else, so that nothing else interferes with our damage. So here within the if, we're going to want to make sure that hit.game.transform.get component AI example dot on hit. There we have our on hit function, and we're gonna have to pass in a damage. So for this, we're gonna make a damage variable here. Public float attack damage, and we're gonna make it equal, I don't know, something like 30. So basically, this is how much health we're gonna reduce to the zombie when we attack him. So we're gonna pass in here attack damage, and then I think I did a float. Yeah, it should have been an int. Forgot that. Int. Okay, so that should work, I think. Let's try that out. So yeah, let's play that. Don't quote me on this, but I think this should work. 1, 2. There, we killed him. See? Seems to be working now. So basically, that's all of this for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to be doing a little bit of, you know, particle effects when we hit him, so that it looks like we're actually hitting him. We're also going to make a ragdoll effect. Basically, just make this look much better in the next tutorial. But for now, we can actually kill the zombie. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. There we go. There, we killed him. Actually, we need to hit him 4 times to kill him. I forgot. So yeah, basically that's that. Next tutorial, we're going to make this look much better. But for now, we were able to kill our zombie. So I hope this was useful, and I hope you learned something. Stay tuned for the next tutorial.